The FSU 2025 wide receiver recruiting class once looked promising with 3 4-star commits, Malik Clark, Dalen McCutcheon, and CJ Wiley. Since the season has started, all 3 of those have decommitted. Ben
Yeah.
Spicer, Michael Langston here to discuss it, break it all down. And Michael, I'm going to give the floor to you. What went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, just more so, you have to focus on the product. The
Yeah.
product was pretty poor. You don't have you see a lot of young development. It was encouraging to see in the last game, in the Miami game, where you saw B.J. Gibson, you saw Elijah Moore for the first time. You saw those guys. I think that helps. Louis McCoy, I think, started to get some work, so that helps. But I think overall the product's just been very poor. You haven't got a lot of Jalen Brown. You haven't got a lot of Malik Benson, who I felt going to spring, everything looked good, but they've had a lot of trouble gaining some confidence. Obviously, you have new quarterbacks in there with Luke playing and Brock playing, so getting to a comfortable consistency of timing and stuff, I think is certainly played into it. But on the bright side, there is some. You're playing a lot more young guys, so that gets people excited when you see younger players. Certainly, you see young quarterbacks. It's just gonna take some time for them to develop chemistry, and certainly just the product itself, I think's really hurt them. Certainly, when you're 1-7, as I said way back, you're going to lose kids just because other teams aren't. Saw that with the flip from Dale McCutcheon, Texas. He's from Texas. When you get that, you're gonna have that, and then same with the other ones. Malik Clark, South Carolina's having a fairly productive year. He's from South Carolina. He goes to there. So I think I think overall you have that, and then the biggest one loss was the CJ Wiley one, which I think is more of a Texas A&M Georgia battle. So the product is going against other products that are successful, and when you have that and you have a 1-7 drastic awful season, you're gonna get those results. So I think that's why we're back to square one and zero. And I think certainly they're gonna focus on the guys they feel like they can push for. I do think to some degree they are in communication with some of those guys. I think CJ Wiley is probably one they still communicate with, but overall, I think it's going to be a new group from what I see of potentially being in this class.
There's so many uncertainties at play here. Uncertainty at the quarterback position. We've seen 3 different quarterbacks throughout the season.
Yep.
Uncertainty with the offense, if they can get it going and get it to where it was, just a year ago. And then uncertainty in the coaching staff. So how much do all 3 of those factors kind of play into this, especially with the relationships that these players have with these coaches who might not be here next year?
Yeah, I think you touched on the end part of the relationships, because that's one of their biggest selling points of what they're good at. And I think there's a lot of kids and a lot of people, and majority of these recruits, they certainly believe in Mike Norvell, that he can get it fixed because he's done it before. So he came here for, he fixed it. Now this is more of his own doing of what the results are and the product is. But I think they realize, they feel like, because he's done it before, that I think recruits buying that. But yeah, to your point, I mean, there's a lot of you have concerns of who's going to be there. Is Coach Atkins going to be there? Is Dugans? You're going to make a change at receiver? What's going to happen with the coordinator? So there's a lot of uncertainty, and certainly when you have uncertainty, that makes it clouds it a little bit even more when you go. I mean, the season's bad, and yeah, you're going to lose flips to that, but I think a lot of it's just recruits wanting to know kind of what things are going to be, what's kind of the plan. And I think that's why it's important to get these kids on campus. And I think you will have a solid group, and we'll go into that in a video upcoming of official visitors. But I think overall, I think prospects just want to know kind of what the plan is, and where they turn and where they go from there. They don't need to know every step they're going to do, because only Mike Norvell probably knows what their plan is. But I think overall it does add more conflict when you don't know kind of the uncertainties of who's going to be there and who isn't.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good segue leading into who are some guys that are targeting and reaching out to in the 2025 class at receiver. You mentioned there's still communication with some of those guys that have flipped or decommitted, but are
Right.
there other names emerging at that position now that they're recruiting and going after?
Yeah, there certainly is. I think the main one that I have circled is Javon Boggs from over there in Cocoa High School. He plays at the same school as Javion Hillison. So that's a guy that for me, that's the one I circle because that's the one where I feel like you could. I mean, and there's selling points to this, like because it's like there's not I would say a top per se receiver in this group that FSU already has on campus. There's not like a group that's separating themselves. So I think kids can see like, hey, the opportunity is going to be there. I can make a really big impact as a freshman early on in that, and I think Javion Buck sees that. He's a very productive receiver for Coco. He's been very impressive all year. I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but just tracking the stats as I have all year, that's one that's been very productive. That's one that if there's a must add, as far as the receiver position, I think that's the one that I circle. You also have Trey Gelsey that's committed to Florida. He's out of Jacksonville. He's a guy that our Matt Lacer did a story on him of while Florida likes him as a tight end, FSU likes him as a receiver, as a big receiver, maybe to that you know Johnny Wilson type style without as much height, though as much height to his game, but a guy that's can make big plays as a receiver, and I think that's intriguing to a guy like Trey, so or Tay. So I think those are kind of the two that I've kind of got circled. There will be more because, as we said, we don't know who's going to be there. So whether it's Dugans or somebody else, and if there's somebody else, you're going to have a lot more targets. And we did a story on Warchant. I think people can read it of what's next, and I listed a few of those guys. Those are two that I think just stand out to me. So I kind of just wanted to focus on those two, but I think there will be more that emerge because there's certainly talented receivers. I think guys like Kobe Howard is committed to Penn State. That's a guy that has been really high on FSU that they could circle around to. That you see FSU make another push for because you're basically starting over what you're going to add in this class. So I think those are the few that I look, but those two I think really are being the top tier guys that I've heard immediately. Both of them talented, 4-star prospects. I think will add a lot to your receiver room. And really, I think they just need 2 or 3 in this class. I think if you get 2 or 3, I think that's workable where you can do some things. But certainly a trying and difficult time. But I think that's kind of where I see it set right now.
Now, I want to bring this up before we close out here because it's something that kind of intrigues me a little bit. So you still have the early signing period. They moved that up, right? And then you have the spring signing window as well. But obviously, you want to try and get guys in early. So
Yeah.
with that moving up, do you kind of have more urgency maybe if you're Mike Norvell and you're going to make coaching staff changes to get someone in place so you can kind of start, working in the recruiting ranks to try and get those guys interested in whoever you're going to bring in, or how do you kind of conduct yourself in that aspect?
I would think so. There's
Yeah.
more urgency because, I mean, the facts are they're 1-7. So at this point, it's kind of everyone knows what I always say. By the time the 4th or 5th game, you kind of know what your team is. So yeah, I think there's a sense of urgency of getting plans in place. People have asked me like, do you think it's already in motion? I say I would think so, but I
Yeah.
don't know for 100% fact. But I would think some things are in motion of what they plan to do. But I think certainly it puts a little urgency, especially when you don't have a receiver commit, especially at this position. I think certainly you want to get some done and kind of lay out the foundation of what you're going to do overall. But I think certainly these moves and these changes, assuming they happen, I think are certainly essential, and certainly you want to get them done as quick as you can because thing is, I mean, it's not going to change whether you know you can't wait. I don't think you wait till like after any signing period because kids are going to want to know before they sign what they do, and even if they sign, they can hit the portal anytime they want. We've seen kids that sign that hit the portal. So I think certainly effective and calculated moves are certainly imperative to the situation they're in.
Wide receiver recruiting woes for Florida State. It'll be interesting to see how Mike Norvell responds, in whether it be in the transfer portal or in the 2025 class. For Michael Langston, I'm Ben Spicer. Join us later on the channel as we talk about visitors coming for the UNC game right here on Warchant TV. Until then, we'll see you next time.